Hi everyone, welcome to this virtual Master Open Day at Erasmus University. My name is Michal Derko and we were supposed to meet in person at the Erasmus University campus in Rotterdam, but due to the current health situation, I'm talking to you from my living room. And today I'm going to tell you a little more about the Master in International Public Management and Public Policy. I was supposed to be here today with our student ambassador, Lena, and Lena is going to talk to you, at least virtually, a little later during the presentation. But we are going to try to do this presentation as if we were in the meeting in Rotterdam. And in about 25 to 30 minutes today, I'm trying to tell you a little more about our program, what you can expect if you apply to our program, but also how is our program going to prepare you for a wide range of careers in international public policy. So let's start. On the picture here, you can see our group of students from this year. This is from one of the meetings that we had, one of the social events that we had in the autumn. And as you can see, we have a really diverse group of students in our program, and we hope that many of you who are watching this video will decide to join our diverse group for next year as well. In the presentation today, I'm going to talk a little about what the program is about, what's the content of the program, what kind of courses you are going to follow if you decide to join this program. And then I will talk a little more about the curriculum in the program, what are the career options, what are the admission requirements, and in the end, I want to tell you a little more about whether this is a good choice for you, because at the end of the day, we want you to be able to choose the best program for you, and so maybe after this presentation, you are going to, and hopefully after the end of this presentation, you're going to say, oh my God, this is such an amazing program, I want to join it. So our program is basically focused on issues that are of global and transborder relevance. And we basically start from the starting point when we realized that most of the problems today cannot be solved by a single country alone. And most of the problems, whether you're thinking about migration, about climate change, but even about issues related to global health, such as we know today, are actually issues that require global cooperation. And to be able to achieve that global cooperation, we need to understand public policy processes at both national but also international level. We also start from the point of view that we realize that to be able to answer and respond to these challenges, we need expertise from multiple disciplines. So this is not a world where you can succeed with monodisciplinary expertise. And so our program combines expertise from the study of public administration, but also the study of economics, political science, sociology. And we are actually very multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary because we combine these insights from different disciplines in trying to come up with ideas to analyze and manage these many global challenges. Our program consists of four blocks, and we have courses in 3 of the 4 blocks. This is something that makes us different from other programs within the Erasmus University, but also in the Netherlands. And you can think about these courses in the first 2 blocks as courses in 3 pillars. One of the pillars is in public policy, and one of the pillars is in international policy, and one of the pillars is in European policy. So in block 1, you start with 3 courses. The first course is global governance. It's a course that basically looks at international politics, but also looks at international organizations and how states and non-state actors, through diverse mechanisms of global governance, are trying to answer different problems in global politics. We talk about security, but we also talk about environment. We talk also about trade and other issues. In the course in global comparative public policy, you get a really strong background in public policy and in the studying public policy Drawing on comparative insights from multiple countries, you actually get a much better idea about some of the theories of public policy, but also approaches and methodologies to studying public policy. In the EU policymaking course, we are going to talk a little more about how the EU works, basically about different institutions of the EU, but also about how actually EU makes decisions, how it enforces decisions, how compliance in the EU works. And it's a very, very practice-oriented course. In the second block, we move towards 3 other courses. We start with a course on international organizations and development, and that is a course that is very much focused on international economics and international development, and it's related to trade, and you basically try to understand which strategies for international development work and which ones are less successful, but also how we can support international cooperation in economic and financial sector. Then there is a course in international public management, and the course in international public management is the one that is one of the most popular because it's basically a very hands-on course that teaches you how to manage public organizations. And it's a course that takes a very business-like approach in terms of thinking about strategic management and then applies it to public organizations, whether those are governments or whether those are NGOs. And it's very much a hands-on course that basically teaches you how to think about managing public organizations. Last but not least, in Block 2, we have a course in the Europe in the World. And the Europe in the World course is a course that basically addresses the issues of activities of European countries in the rest of the world. It's about the external activities of the European Union abroad. And this is not only about military missions, but it's about the broader scope of activities that the EU has abroad. So whether you think about the trade, whether you think about the humanitarian action, everything is included in that course. Already in Block 2, we start with some of the activities of professional development. And our professional development classes, which is something that we are very proud of, start in full swing in Block 3. I'm going to talk in about 3 slides about the professional development classes, and so what else you can actually learn there. In the third block, you also have an opportunity to take an elective. Our students have a wide choice of electives. There is a list of pre-approved electives that contains about 40 courses from across Erasmus University, which you can choose for your course. So you can choose another elective from public administration, but you can also choose an elective from law or from public health management or from development studies. There is a really broad scope for electives. And if you don't find your desired elective there, you're also free to pick an elective from any other university in the Netherlands, which after being approved by our examination board can be taken and you can apply these credits towards your future study. You also start working on your final thesis in Block 3, but Block 4 is really devoted to the master thesis. So the final research project is about writing a thesis of about 20,000 words. And this is, on one hand, it's an independent piece of work because you work on it alone, but on the other hand, you also work in groups. Our thesis project is organized in small groups of around 4 or 5 students, together with the supervisor, who is usually a senior member of the academic staff. And there is a discussion about how to make your research better, and there is a lot of collaborative environment between the students and the supervisor. And most of our students are, in the end, very happy with their thesis, and sometimes these theses get even published in academic journals. As opposed to many other programs, our lectures, our curriculum is actually very diverse. In some courses, we have interactive lectures, which means that instead of having a sage on the stage, you actually have a lot of interaction between the students and the lecturer, and there is a bit of a lecturing and bit of a workshop-style discussion. We also have some working group meetings. So in some of the courses, you're going to be broken into groups, and there's going to be a small working group meeting where you are going to be meeting together with a member of academic staff to, for example, solve a certain issue or a problem. Some of our courses include simulations, and we also do simulations in our professional development course. As a part of our program, you are going to go to at least 2 study trips, if not more, and we're going to talk about that a little later. And we also have very diverse way of doing exams. In some of the courses, there are very traditional exams, but in some of the courses, there are papers. In other courses, there are, for example, exams. In other courses, you are asked to do a project. In other courses, there are group projects. And so we are making sure that we test you in very, very diverse ways. Now, unfortunately, our regular curriculum does not contain a space for internship, but over half of our students do actually do internships, and we usually do not make it difficult for the students who want to do an internship. And so we are trying to be as collaborative as possible. And many of our students do, for example, internship in between the courses or sometime later in the year. Now, as I show you, as you can see here in the picture, there's a photo of our students this year with the Vice President of the International Court of Justice, Judge Xu, whom the students met as a part of their course in global governance. And this is an example of how we actually try to bring practice close to our program. Our program is really not about drilling theoretical knowledge, but one of the things that Erasmus University is really, really, really famous for is that our study is very closely related to practical life. And so in our programs, you are actually going to learn a lot about the practical world, but you're also going to, your assignments, your papers, the work that you're going to do is going to be very, very closely related to practical policy puzzles. And for that reason, we think it's very important that you also get in touch with practical policymakers, and you learn about how policy works in real life. And so in this course, even though our students are actually students of international public management, so they're not really lawyers, they went to the International Court of Justice to talk to a judge of International Court of Justice to learn about the role of international judicial institutions in resolving disputes between states. As I mentioned, one of the aspects of the program that we are really famous for, but also very proud of, is our professional development course. And our professional development course consists of 2 parts. The first part is about research design. It's about preparing you to write your own thesis. And the first half of the professional development course really prepares you, how do you write your thesis on your own? So there is a research on research methodology, but also on how you actually design your research, how do you formulate a research question, how do you go about doing literature review, and so on and so forth. However, our second part of the professional development course is about preparing you for the labor market. Because as much as we love you to have you in our program, and as much as we think that you love being in our program, at the end of the day, you want to get a job, and we want you to be able to get a really good job. And so we try to prepare you as much as possible for that moment when you are actually going to enter the labor market. And we do it in 3 main ways. The first one is we arrange guest lectures by practitioners, including the alumni. And this is basically a very interactive moment when these practitioners or alumni come to our students, meet them, talk to them about what kind of jobs they have and what do you need to succeed in that jobs and what are the upsides and the downsides. And it's very informal, but it's also very interactive. So this is, again, not someone who is a sage on the stage who is talking to you, but this is very much someone who actually gives you an idea about how it is to have a certain job, like to work at a consultancy company, or work at the ministry, or work for an international organization, and so on. We also prepare our students by giving them opportunity to meet coaches and experts on writing cover letters, writing CVs, so that when the moment comes when you're going to be applying for a job, you are actually able to do it successfully, and you're able to succeed in that task. Now, the other thing that we do is we give our students the negotiation training, which is the same as many other countries' diplomats take at the Klingendahl Institute. Klingendahl Institute is a world-leading training institution for diplomats in The Hague, and diplomats from over 150 countries go to receive their diplomatic training at the Klingendahl Institute. What our students get is they get a one-day condensed version of the training with a number of small exercises when they actually learn multiple negotiation techniques that might be later useful in their future careers. Last but not least, we organize two major study trips. The first one is a 4-day study trip to Geneva, when students go and visit different international organizations, but also NGOs and embassies. And this trip to Geneva is basically meant to give students an opportunity to learn more about how it is to work at an international organization or in international policy. Because many of the things sound really glamorous and many of the things really sound exciting, but actually at the end of the day, it's always best to hear from someone who actually has that type of experience, whether you would like to have the job. How it is really to work for the United Nations? How is it really to be, move across 13 countries in 13 years? How it is to work for an NGO, for a major world NGO? Do you really want to be a diplomat? And so on and so forth. And so this is a trip where you go to Geneva together with your students for 4 days. You don't meet the public relations people, but you actually meet the real people who do a real job there. And so they are there, you meet them, and they're there to answer your questions about anything that interests you about working in these organizations. We also organize a shorter one-day trip to Brussels. And this one-day trip to Brussels is basically aimed at, on one hand, visiting main European institutions, such as the European Commission and the European Parliament. But at the end of our study trip to Brussels, we also organize drinks with our program's alumni in Brussels. And so it gives you an opportunity to meet in a relaxed atmosphere someone who went through the same program as you, is currently working for a European organization, institutions in Brussels, and sort of gives you an idea and a feel about how it is to actually get to that job, what those jobs actually entail, but also how to get that job. So how do you actually apply for a job at a commission? Some of the alumni of our programs, for example, have quite high positions in the European Parliament. One of our program's alumni was the deputy director of the Parliament's Brexit committee. And so these are really the topics that you want to hear, because this is, you want to know whether you want to apply for these jobs or not. Now, we all make it sound very, very serious, but it's not really always the case. We also try to build a family. And so we like to say that there is an IMP family. And so once you become an IMP student, you become part of that family. And we also foster informal interaction between the students. And after the end of the program, our students really end up being a very tightly knit community. And one of the things that is important to realize is that our program is quite small. It has around 40 students per year. And so you really get to meet all your friends, and you also get to meet all other students. And so, and you really forge the friendships that are going to sustain for a longer period of time. I'm going to tell you in a little while that we have an alumni association, and we organize every year a meeting of the alumni. And from some years, we see students sort of coming after 5, 6, 7 years after graduation. They still come to Rotterdam because they want to meet their friends and they want to have a good time together. And I think this is one of the really important part of your studies, because you want to build that network that is going to be helpful to you in the future. Now, this is our group this year of 30-something students And this is a picture that we have taken in the World Trade Organization in Geneva during our visit in November 2019. And in that picture, you can see Lena, our student ambassador. And so I will now pass the floor to Lena to say a little bit about her point of view of our program.
Hello everyone, my name is Lena and I want to talk to you about the International Public Management and Public Policy Master from a student perspective. So first of all, why I really like the master program is that I find the content extremely relevant but also extremely interesting. So you will get a very good understanding of how international politics works in a short time, but also what role international institutions such as the UN and EU actually play. There, the courses usually have a mixed approach, I guess. You have some empirical exercises that will help you with the master's thesis, but you also have some career-focused tasks already, such as writing policy recommendations, policy analyses, creating your own NGO, so things that will also help you for your work life later on. And that is one thing that I really appreciate, is that the master is actually so hands-on. The reason why I actually chose this master program over other masters was that I really liked the combination of public management and public policy. And honestly, I couldn't really find that combination anywhere else. So most master programs, I guess, focused either on public administration or on political science. But I wanted to have the combination because I think on the one hand it's crucial to kind of analyze the policies, that's the public policy part, but also to know how you can actually implement it in order to actually create public value, and that's of course the public management part. Then moreover, I'm really interested in international politics, so then I just knew that the master is a very good fit for me. Another thing that I really like is that we're actually very small groups of students. So we are about 35 to 40 students, I guess, every year. And we actually became very close friends very soon. I think one reason for that is also that we are that you get weekly deadlines. The master can be very stressful, but it's still, because it is so interesting, it's actually worth it, and you just hang in there together, and then that's still super interesting and fun. Also, all the professors will know your name, so it's a very kind of familiar atmosphere in the master program. Another thing that really surprised me is that the master has very close ties with its alumni. So we had alumni coming in regularly, and they gave us tips on how to find their first job, what they're actually doing now in their job. So I find it super helpful that you actually get those tips firsthand from people that also did the same master program as you. So if you have any more questions, please let me know. Just text me on Unibuddy or Instagram, and I will be happy to answer your questions. Bye.
Now that you have heard from Lena, you can also ask Lena more questions. In the last slide from this deck, you're going to see the contact form where you can actually contact Lena directly, or you're going to see a link to our program's Instagram profile where you can also ask her questions via Instagram. So the question you might ask, what kind of job am I going to get with a degree in international public management? And a short answer is any type of job, but of course that is not going to satisfy you. So let's give you a little more detailed answer. In general, our students end up in positions associated with internationalization of public management policy. Most of them end up in one way or another in some form of governmental organizations. Many of them end up in national government, so you can think about people who go and work at different ministries, whether that's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but also Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Economic Affairs in the Netherlands or elsewhere, Ministries of Finance. Our alumni end up going to regional governments, because regional governments are increasingly becoming important actors in global politics. And so there are people who work for example, provinces or city governments in different countries, because many of these organizations are becoming more and more relevant for managing these global problems. Many of our students end up working for international organizations such as the United Nations or the European Union. As I mentioned, European Parliament is very popular, but also if you think about the European Union in Brussels, there is a whole world of other organizations that are connected to the EU in one way or another. These may be NGOs, so we have we have some of the alumni that work for NGOs, whether that's Greenpeace or Amnesty International or some other European NGOs, but they also end up working for international consultancy firms and think tanks. For example, many of our alumni work for different branch organizations and representative bodies, but also lobbies in Brussels, because they understand how these international organizations, how EU works. This is actually a very much sought for expertise. Of course, some of them go and work for multinational companies, or they end up working for consultancies. And some of them decide that they really want to learn more, and they end up working at research institutes, or they decide to do a PhD afterwards. So our program gives you opportunities to actually develop a very broad range of careers, and you are actually able to then choose a type of career that is going to be most closest to your interest and to what you desire. Now, you can ask, okay, so this is an amazing program, how do I get in? We normally require you to have a bachelor degrees in public administration or political science or European studies and international relations. And these 4 programs are something we call directly admissible. And so as long as you have a sufficient grade, which is above 7, you are, and you have some sort of international motivation, you are directly admissible in our program. If you have not completed one of these programs, if you, for example, studied sociology or economics or international business or communication or psychology, but you can show, for example, by taking an elective that is relevant, or by showing that you have some experience, maybe you did some volunteering, maybe you had a student job at some other organization, that you are somehow closely related to this public service and public policy, we're going to have a very serious look at your application. You of course have to speak Dutch, so we require you to pass a number of international tests, or you can pass, you're also considered to have sufficient level of Dutch if you complete a bachelor level diploma in the Netherlands. You also have to submit a letter of motivation, and we read those very carefully. I read those very carefully because I read all 400 applications that we receive every year. And in that letter of motivation, we basically want to see what's your international orientation? Why do you want to study this program? Is there a motivation to somehow contribute to this public management and public policy? Last but not least, as I mentioned, we require you to have a certain minimal level of grades. And in the Dutch grading standard, that is 7.0, so at least higher than 7. But the university has a very elaborate set of tables, which basically translate our grading system into grading systems in all of the other countries of the world. So whether you're watching me now from the Netherlands, or whether you're watching me from Armenia, or whether you're watching me from Brazil, we have a table to translate your grading system, so don't despair. Now, the question is this the right choice for you? And this program is the right choice for you if you are interested in a program that has a very multidisciplinary orientation. As I mentioned, our program is actually very multidisciplinary in a way that we understand that you cannot answer the world's most pressing social challenges with a single discipline alone. So that's why we combine insights from multiple disciplines. We also have a very strong multi-level focus. We also understand that the global challenges cannot be resolved at a single level of government. This cannot be resolved by international governance without cooperation with national governments, and national governments cannot respond to this without working with the regional level. And so we sort of understand that there is this overlap between individual levels, and this is something that is really important for us. Our program has a very strong emphasis on labor market, and so if you are interested in getting into a program that is going to prepare you for your future job and for being able to actually get a future job, then this is a really good program for you. This is probably the best program that you can join in public policy or public management in continental Europe. Our program is very internationally oriented. Not only we organize these study trips, but we also have a very diverse set of students. About 50% of our students are non-Dutch, and we have really students from all over the world. We have students from United Kingdom, United States, Italy, Malta, Germany, Spain, Russia. We have a really wide scope of students coming from different parts of the world. And last but not least, this is a program that is embedded in a very active research community. The Department of Public Administration and Sociology at Erasmus University is one of the largest public administration departments in Europe. And in the Shanghai ranking of research excellence, it's the #1 in the world. And so you're going to be a part of a very active community of learners, but also a very active community of states that are actually able to, people who are very actually able to do a lot of cutting edge research. Now, you can also think about this program in different ways about whether it's a right choice for you. And you can think about it in a way that tells you more about what kind of skills do you get. And I want to help myself here a little bit with a figure from Financial Times from 2018, when the Financial Times did a survey about what are the most important skills that people are looking for when they're hiring fresh graduates. And even though this is basically more focused towards the MBAs, this is Financial Times after all, the same skills also apply to hiring people who are freshly graduated from any type of graduate program. And one of the most important things is that employers are looking for people who are able to work in a team. And you're going to be able to work in a team if you graduate from our program, because you are going to will have to work with your students and with your fellow students, and very often on group projects or group assignments. You also will have to be able to work with a wide variety of people. Not only our program is very international, as I mentioned, so you actually get to meet a lot of different people, but also our program is, in our program, you're going to be able to work with different professors. We are also going to be meeting professional experts. You're going to be meeting a very broad set of people. As I mentioned, we are a very practically oriented program. And so many of our problems that you're going to encounter in the class are not going to be simple ones. They're going to be actually very complex. And ability to solve complex problems is something that you're going to encounter from day one. And this is something that you will have to actually learn from day one. And this is what we are really proud of. As I mentioned, our professional development part is very directly focused on the ability to build and sustain and expand your network of people. You're going to meet a lot of people. You're going to learn how to actually build your network of friends and contacts, but also how to keep that network alive and how to leverage it in your favor, for example, when looking for a job. As I mentioned before, we have a very active alumni association as the only program at the Erasmus University, and I dare to say one of the very few, if not the only one in Europe, that actually meets very regularly. And this gives you an opportunity to expand your network of people, meet people who have gone through the same program, actually meet and encounter more and more people. One of the things that you're going to hear in our career workshops is that 80% of jobs are given or sort of informally advertised through a network of people. And so the bigger your network of people, the more people you know, the better it is for you to be able to find a job. And last but not least, in our program, for sure, you're going to learn how to manage your time. We're going to keep you busy for a year. So this is a program where There's going to be quite a bit of fun, but there's also going to be quite a bit of work. Now, if this really sounds exciting to you, please be in touch. You can either get in touch with Lena, our student ambassador, and you can get in touch with her with the QR code that is shown here on the slide. If you want to learn more about the life of a student, you can also join us on Instagram, and you can find our program and see some of the pictures. And if you want to also ask Lena some questions, she's the one who is managing the Instagram account, so you can also send her a message through there. If you have more administrative type of questions, you can talk to the admissions office at the email address that is listed on the slide, or go to our website where you can find everything that you may want to know about our program. Now, if we were meeting in person, this would be a time to open the floor for a discussion. We can't do that. So instead of opening the floor for discussion, I want to thank you. And if you have any questions, please get in touch with Lena or with the admissions office. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I hope to see you next year at Erasmus University.